Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Build Monger, and welcome back to another episode on the VintageCraft server. A lot has happened. In this episode, we have decorated the interior of the first floor of our Spanish mansion. The roof has been completed from the commission on the Spanish mansion. We have done some jungle-style ruins, not in the Spanish mansion. And I am super excited for this episode because a lot's been done and it's probably been our most productive episode thus far. So, if you enjoy the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and smack that notification bell so you can be notified when other videos of mine come out in the future. Alrighty guys. So we've got some plans for today's episode, but before we get started, I want to show you something. Caesar Corona, 99. He's the guy who I commissioned to do the roof, has delivered in an incredibly epic way. Let me just get up here and show you. He has done the messy rugged roof to every tier that I have talked about. I've talked about this messy rugged roof, and he mixed in some red sandstone, which I actually really love. Mentioned maybe using it as a trim, but I didn't really want a trim. And you know, he actually just mixed it in, which I love. And of course, you can't forget this amazing tower roof that basically gives off the same style. So this is incredible. I'll definitely be commissioning him. Where are my words? If I ever do another Spanish or large Spanish build. Anyway guys, today I actually want to work on the interior with a little bit of a Spanish living room, and then I want to get a little more progress done on the jungle side of things, because that's basically been neglected quite a bit. In the last few episodes, I want to sort of build up the jungle city, if you will. And by the jungle city, I of course mean some like ruined buildings made of cobblestone. It's gonna look good. Just trust me. And the idea is that as you get closer to the temple, they're gonna be less ruined, because the Spanish forces haven't gotten to that point yet. There's some weird bugs with beds. In case you didn't catch that, I said bugs with beds, not bugs in beds. We can all sleep safely here on the Vintage Beef server. What I'm trying to do with these beds, however, is fairly simple, in that I simply want to just make a few little benches, and you know what, this should go one more over, just like that. And no, that's sort of blocking my interior design is all about trial and error, guys. I have to tell you, you know, you have to just try things out and see how they work. And I'd say it's not very good. I think we should move these over actually quite a bit, because yeah, it's just like all trial and error, but I think this works well. We are also just going to quickly add a little bit of a spruce coffee table, just like so. And then I don't really know what else I'm going to add. Probably something in that corner. You know what? We can probably put some shelves there. So let me get some materials for that. So I think this would be just a fairly simple shelf design. I'm going to have to move all of these torches, which sort of sucks, but you know what? I can probably put a torch here and a torch here hanging from this wall, and I hope that's enough. And you know what? While we're on this streak, why don't we try and essentially do a little bit of the kitchen? And here we have it. We have a little bit of acacia wood, some polished diorite, few note blocks, and other stuff to make a kitchen counter, which I feel would work quite well with a few pressure plates just randomly scattered about. And you know what? I'm gonna move this one just down here a little bit, just like that. And yeah, so we still have a bit more to do in this kitchen. I'm gonna add just a little bit of a fridge design, and then I am going to put a few furnaces right there. But yeah, I think it's looking nice. And I think that's good. I was gonna add a fridge, but obviously this is the colonial era, so yeah. But I think I added just a little tiny furnace over here with a little vent, which I think looks just a bit nice. And this is where our ceiling light's gonna go. We're gonna focus on that once we do the upstairs in a few episodes. But other than that, the house is looking good. So the next thing I want to do is work on a bit of a jungle ruin area to surround this temple. So let's get on with it in time lapse. Alright, so we are back, and I think that this ruin is looking really good, really beaten up in a way I quite like. And my favorite part has to be how we incorporated the nether portal into this design. We basically took it and turned it into a ruined building of itself. And if you go in, you can kind of see right here, pardon the noise guys, but you can see it really does look like you kind of just have to walk out if you come into my base in a really cool way, which I like. Now, I did mention that I was essentially going to work on a little bit more of, like, the buildings up here would be a lot less ruined than the buildings down here, and you can see that's definitely not true. But what I did do, which was cool, is the buildings up there are meant to be slightly taller. There are some that are just facades and stuff, but yeah. This whole thing will all make sense once we get like some trebuchets and catapults launching projectiles on to the main area. But I want to do that in probably another episode if I need to stretch out this episode because it's very short, which might happen. My episodes are pretty short as they come, but I want to keep them over 10 minutes. I might build the siege weapons in this episode. But let's stop talking about what we're going to build and start talking about what we actually did build in the time lapse. So I was originally just going to do cobble and mossy cobble, and I will explain why in just a little bit, but I went back while it was still cobble. It might have been different when it was mossy cobble. I thought, this looks incredibly textureless. So what I did was I textured it, and I added some gravel. I did not add stone brick, because I don't think stone brick would really honestly work in these rundown buildings, and I wanted to keep a consistent texture, which cobblestone, gravel, and andesite all work for. But I'm not using andesite because, well, Jappa screwed up big time. I'm using the second version of these new textures, and andesite absolutely clashes with cobblestone. This actually released mid-recording. You can see in the first few clips I put out, I'm still using the first version of the new textures, but in the time-lapse I'm using the second version. Editing at its finest, guys. Editing at its finest. But these ruins are looking good, and they serve a much more practical purpose. Yes, you may have noticed in the last 2 episodes I've been neglecting my revolution work, and the Neo Revolution banner I sent to Vintage Beef, he never showed off because he had no idea what the banner was. You think you can hide from the Revolution banner? You think you can hide? Well, I'll tell you, you can't. I am going to make sure you know this. I'm going to post a revolutionary manifesto on your wall, and I'm going to march on spawn. But I need a headquarters, and I need to hide it away from, well, these zombies, but also from the establishment. That sound makes it so perfect. I need to hide this from the establishment because, well, if I don't, they'll find me and they'll get rid of me. And so, we cannot tolerate that. The last bastion of free speech on the VintageCraft server cannot be destroyed. Are you with me?